Hoover Dam looks alive. The massive concrete arc remains an icon of industrial permanence, and the water still flows through the spillways of the Black Canyon. But the dam is already dying, and 25 million people depend on it for water and power. They assume we'll always be there. If you stand on the observation deck, you see a monument to human engineering that seems frozen in time. You see the Art Deco towers and the sheer scale of the Colorado River. But that visible image is a mask. The system is failing from the inside out, and the hardware we built to save it has become the very thing that is now breaking. 25 million people in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Phoenix rely on a mechanism that is physically losing its ability to function. By the end of this case file, you will understand exactly how that cutoff happens and why the surface gives you no warning before it does. We view Hoover Dam as a permanent battery for the American Southwest. We see it as a static vault of energy that will endure as long as the concrete holds. But through a forensic lens, Hoover Dam is not a battery. It is a system of pressure. It is a gravity machine that requires a specific weight of water to function. When that weight disappears, the machine becomes a liability. The crisis at Lake Mead is often framed as a simple story of a drying lake, but the forensic reality is much more technical. It is a story of mechanical obsolescence. We are watching a state-of-the-art power plant lose a battle against a disappearing fuel source. The problem is not that the dam is old. The problem is that the dam is actually too new for the environment it now inhabits. Look at the intake towers. These four massive concrete structures stand in the water just behind the dam wall. They are the visible clues to the foundation of the collapse. To the casual observer, they look like decorative pillars, but they are the lungs of the entire system. They draw water from the depths of Lake Mead and send it screaming down through the penstocks to the turbines. In the early 1930s, these towers were designed to handle a massive volume of water under immense pressure. But look at the white bathtub ring around the canyon walls. That ring is not just a stain, it is a measurement of lost potential energy. When the water level drops, the pressure at the bottom of those intake towers decreases. This is a concept called hydraulic head. It is the physical weight of the water column pushing down. For every foot the lake surface drops, the dam loses the ability to push water through the turbines with the same force. We see the retreating shoreline and think of it as a loss of scenery. Through a forensic lens, that retreat is a loss of mechanical leverage. The dam is losing its grip on the river. This brings us to the second concept: the illusion of the museum. Most visitors believe they are looking at a pristine 1936 time capsule. They imagine the original brass and steel turbines from the Great Depression are still spinning deep in the powerhouse. This is a diagnostic error. None of the original turbines from the opening of the dam are still doing the work. Between 1986 and 1993, the United States Bureau of Reclamation engaged in a massive uprating program. They ripped out the original guts of the dam and replaced them with high-capacity, state-of-the-art stainless steel runners and modern generator windings. They did this because, in the early 80s, the lake was so full it was nearly overtopping the spillways. They built a powerhouse designed for a world of abundance. They upgraded the capacity to 2,080 megawatts, thinking they had secured the future of the Southwest. But look at the result. Today, Those high-performance turbines are now a mismatch for the reality of the river. We watch the usable water retreat. We watch the loss spread. The very upgrades meant to make the dam more powerful have made it more vulnerable to the low-pressure environment of the 21st century. To understand the logic of this failure, we have to look at the system itself. Hoover Dam is technically just a concrete nozzle. The actual energy-producing machine is the physical weight and height of Lake Mead pressing down on the turbines. This creates a feedback loop of mechanical stress. When the lake level is high, the water is dense and heavy, spinning the turbines with ease. But as the lake drops toward 1,050 feet above sea level, the water becomes lighter in terms of pressure. If this inflow held at historic levels, the system would remain stable. But it has not. As the pressure drops, the turbines begin to suffer from a phenomenon called cavitation. This occurs when the water pressure is so low that tiny vacuum bubbles form on the surface of the turbine blades. These bubbles do not just sit there. They collapse with enough force to literally blast holes in solid stainless steel. The modern high-capacity turbines installed in the 1990s were never designed to run at these low levels. They were built for speed and volume. Running them now is like trying to drive a high-performance sports car through a swamp. The engine is powerful, but the environment is making it tear itself apart. We are now seeing the dam enter what engineers call the rough operating zone. This is a state where the vibration from the low-pressure water becomes so violent it can damage the structural integrity of the powerhouse floor. Now look at the most advanced form of the problem. What appears normal to a tourist is often the most revealing sign of collapse. During the peak of summer, you might see the turbines spinning and hear the hum of the transformers. You might think the system is healthy because the lights are on. But through a forensic lens, that activity is a sign of desperation. To compensate for the loss of pressure, operators have had to install 5 new wide-head turbines specifically designed for low water conditions. They are retrofitting the retrofit. They are spending millions of dollars to downsize the expectations of the dam. The original 1930s equipment actually operated under much better conditions than the state-of-the-art replacements do today. We have reached a point where the mechanical youth of the hardware is irrelevant. You can have the newest copper windings and the most efficient magnets in the world, but if you do not have the vertical weight of the lake, you have a museum of unused horsepower. The dam is currently producing nearly half of its rated capacity on many days. The billions of dollars spent on the uprating program are being erased by the simple physics of a falling surface. You, the viewer, should watch the elevation markers at Lake Mead with a sharper eye. Do not just look at the total volume of water. Look at the distance between the surface and the intake gates. We are approaching a threshold known as dead pool. This is not a dramatic event where the water disappears instantly. It is a quiet, mechanical thinning. As the water drops toward 895 feet, it will eventually fall below the level where it can physically enter the intake towers. Before that happens, at around 950 feet, the turbines will have to be shut down entirely to prevent them from being destroyed by the lack of pressure. The system becomes quietly worse every month. People see the blue water of the lake and assume it is a resource. They should see it as a clock. Every foot of elevation lost represents 5 to 6 megawatts of power that will never come back. The cooling systems for the generators are also failing because the water remaining in the lake is getting warmer. Warmer water cannot effectively pull heat away from the massive copper coils, meaning the dam cannot run at full speed, even if there was enough pressure to do so. So here is the answer to the question from the beginning. This is how 25 million people get cut off. The system fails when the falling water level creates a physical vacuum that triggers destructive cavitation, forcing engineers to turn off the turbines to prevent a total mechanical meltdown of the powerhouse. Once the turbines are silenced to save the hardware, the electrical grid loses its primary stabilizer, and the water downstream stops flowing because there is no longer enough pressure to push it through the dam's internal veins. That is not a projection. That is the system working exactly as it is currently built. The original engineers of the 1930s designed a dam for a river that no longer exists, and the modern engineers of the 1990s designed an upgrade for a climate that has already vanished. We are left with a powerhouse that is mechanically brand new, but functionally obsolete. Hoover Dam is not dead yet, but that is the point. The collapse is not the moment the concrete cracks. The collapse is the period we are in right now, where the surface looks stable while the internal mechanism is being choked by physics. The 25 million people who depend on this water don't see the mechanism. They see the surface. Now you do. You see that the stainless steel runners in the modern control rooms are helpless against the simple loss of height. The white ring on the canyon walls is the true diagnostic chart of the American Southwest. It shows a system that has been upgraded to its own limit, leaving no more room for error. When the water falls below the reach of the steel, the era of the Great Dam ends, not with a bang, but with a mechanical shudder and a final silent stop. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to look beneath the surface of these systems. If this forensic look at water infrastructure was valuable to you, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button. It helps these case files reach more people. Tell me in the comments which water body or industrial system I should cover next. I will see you in the next case file.